Hi there, and welcome to another edition of the 1% Better podcast with your host, Rob O'Donoghue.
Hello there. It's Tuesday and it's 1% Better Tuesday. Maybe this is a one-off, maybe not, but it is my intention to release more episodes of the 1% Better podcast. We always get one out on the Friday, pretty much, but I have a number of recorded episodes that I do offline, and I'm delighted to be able to bring this one out on a Tuesday. Hopefully over the next few weeks I'll do some live shows directly out on the Tuesday, and also some that I've recorded, edited, and will put out. I was able to take advantage of most of a free day on Sunday and just dived straight into editing one after the other. I think that's something I might do once a month going forward, because I get a lot more done when you do it in batch. Anyway, that's not really important to you, but the important part is there is an episode, and it's with two female comedians, one named Emma Pyne, who is an Irish lady. She's been living in LA for about a decade, and the other is Michelle Thorn, who is American but has certainly Irish heritage, as she's informed me during the show. 50% Irish, I believe. I connected with them a few months back. We recorded this podcast. We also recorded it on video, and I'll put that up on the YouTube channel and a link on the website. They have their own comedy show in LA called Throwing Punches. It's held once a month in LA's Universal City. Lots of cities in LA, but this is one of them, and it brings together a diverse lineup of comics. And it's remarkable in that every show has both up-and-coming comics and seasoned comics indeed. This show talks about both Emma and Michelle's comedic journey, where they've come from, how they're doing now, and I try to dig into the creative process, how they put bits together, how they deal with feedback, and how they really kind of gel together as a duo for putting this show on, how it's helped them grow and develop over the last year and a half since it's been running. I also dig into what the whole hierarchy of comics is like in Hollywood, and very interestingly talk about a certain milestone, a certain number of years in the profession before they get their stripes, if you will. Dig into that. Like any profession, it takes hard work. There's a lot of putting yourself on the line, putting yourself out there, certainly developing a thick skin, dealing with fear and nerves, probably in this world much more than any typical job. I really am interested in how they deal with all of that, and they're very open and delighted to share their insights and what they've learned so far. So a little shorter intro than normal. I hope that's okay. I'm sure most of you are delighted, but I will always ask, please do sign up to the podcast if you're a new listener, because Emma and Michelle may have shared this out and you're checking in to the 1% Better podcast. This is episode 104. There's 103 beforehand. I'd love if you subscribe to the show on any of your podcast apps of choice. Go on to robofthegreen.ie, and on the front page and on the latest page you will see links to all those podcast platforms as well. You can sign up. I'm always looking for feedback. I do put that call out regularly, but typically get maybe 1% of listeners dropping me a note to say they liked something or they didn't like something about the show, or even suggesting a guest that I could follow up with. This one is about comedy, but also looking under the hood and figuring out what motivates and what drives people. That's what 1% Better podcast is all about. It touches on so many different topics, but also underneath it all, it's trying to help you learn and grow professionally, personally. Okay, the short intro probably isn't so short. I'll leave it there. Enjoy the episode with Michelle and Emma, and I hope you have a great rest of week. Episode 105, the next episode, will be out on Friday. Thanks so much, and take care. Yeah, hey guys, welcome to the 1% Better podcast, and this episode is season 3, one of the first ones, and we're focusing on the creative process. I have two ladies from the West Coast. One is from Ireland but living in the West Coast, and we're going to talk about comedy and acting and writing. So Emma Pyne and Michelle Thorn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Great to have you both along on audio and video. It's what time is it over there? It's early morning, noon, I suppose, on the West Coast.
Yeah, 12:15. Yeah.
On a Monday morning, great way to start the week.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll pretend. We'll pretend that is a yes anyway. So we'll start. Michelle, you're on my left side, so let's start with you. Please give yourself an introduction for those that mightn't have heard of you before.
Hi, my name is Michelle Thorn. I'm a writer and comedian. I live in Los Angeles. I'm originally from Florida, and a co-producer with Emma of Throwing Punches, stand-up show.
And when we were connecting beforehand, you did claim a little bit of Irish too, I think, didn't you?
Oh yeah, my mom is from Korea, and then my dad's Irish. His grandparents are from Ireland.
Okay, perfect. Like everybody else in America, I think, at this stage.
America.
Our diaspora is completely...
I did Ancestry.com, and I'm 50% Irish. So
all right,
not
okay.
Just,
So Ancestry.com have all your DNA genetical coding as well, so you've kind of done that.
Yes. Well, my dad did it, so they have him on track, but not me. So he was 99% Irish. Okay,
very good. What was the other 1%?
Asshole. No, just kidding.
Considering the show is called 1% Better, that 1% would be important. So
he needs to get better.
Perfect. Thanks, Michelle. Emma, introduce yourself for maybe a lot of folks probably in Ireland might know of you already, but give it a go there.
Well, I hope they do. My name is Emma Pyne. I'm actually originally from Ennis in County Clare. I've been living in LA for about 9 years now, and Michelle and I run Throwing Punches. I've done a few gigs in Ireland. I did a gig with Carl Spain before Christmas, so hoping to get back to do some gigs in Cork in May.
Okay, perfect. Well, this will be out before May, so anything that comes up, in the meantime, give me info and I can put it on the show notes for folks to share with them. Okay, so we're going to talk about your careers maybe a little bit first, and how you got to where you got to. Remember, you're on camera here, Emma, so you're visible. So, Michelle, talk to me a bit about your aspirations growing up. What did you want to become? A writer, an actor, comedian, director, all of those things?
Probably when I was younger growing up, I wanted more so to focus on acting. I actually moved to Los Angeles when I was 17, and I went to LA County High School for the Arts. Which is a pretty big art school out here. It's kind of like Fame. And then I went to college, liberal arts school, and got my theater degree. And I was mostly focused on acting. But as soon as I graduated from college, I started performing at Upright Citizens Brigade, which is Amy Poehler's comedy theater. Mm-hmm. And I focused more on sketch writing and improv. And then I got on a writing group there. And writing was never even on my radar. And then when I joined a sketch writing team there, it ended up switching over focus to that, and I actually enjoyed writing a little bit more than I did acting, because I like to eat food and not have to deal with that stuff.
Okay.
So and then I switched over to stand-up also because improv and sketch is kind of like a white nerd man's world, and so it was just like writing like Back to the Future sketches over and over again and stuff that didn't really relate to me. And so stand-up is a little bit more personal, and so I have an identity of myself that's not as well spread out. Like, it's a little bit more personal, and I have a story to share with stand-up.
Okay, very good. We'll come back to that. Over to you, Emma.
Yes. What was the question again?
Your journey to just maybe before Throwing Punches. What brought you to LA? I suppose growing up.
I came out in 2009 again I wanted to do American TV and film. I was living in London, and I was actually doing a little bit of stand-up in London. This is 2007, 2008. And I in fact, I did the Edinburgh Fringe. I did the Free Fringe, doing stand-up in 07 and 08. And it was 09 that I thought I wanted to go to LA to do American TV and film. So I kind of initially I pursued the straight acting route. I'm saying route because I'm here. Nobody at home will understand route to the Irish people. I've been here for far too long. So yeah, I've done a bit of independent film. I did a film recently with Ed Asner and Jamie Farr from MASH. And then again, like Michelle, we actually met in a stand-up comedy class. Started doing stand-up as a way to kind of take the reins on my career, and it's a great outlet to perform and write, and you can get on stage really as many times as you like in a week, so you always have that outlet to be on stage if you want. So and then it gives you a voice, particularly as a woman getting older who's over the hill in LA past 25 although it's changing a bit now. But yeah, it's great to be a woman who's aging in LA and to have a voice, and stand-up comedy gives you that.
Okay, very good. Good story so far. When did you guys meet?
We met a couple of years ago.
2 years ago?
At a stand-up comedy class, yeah.
At a class.
Yeah, and we started throwing punches pretty much as soon as we finished the class.
Yeah.
Wow. And like when you were going to those classes, was there in either of your mindsets to set up your own show? Was it something you wanted to do on your own, or was there an angle that we were looking to collaborate with somebody?
I think we both knew we were serious, and I think I definitely wanted to start a show, and Michelle is talented and she's a doer as well, so we partnered up fairly quickly, and we sort of both had the same vision for what we wanted to create for the show.
Yeah, especially because this was 2 years ago. Things have changed a lot. It was a lot of there wasn't a lot of women shows focused mainly on women. We don't only have women on our show, but we're women heavy and people of color heavy.
Yeah, and then gingers.
Yeah.
Guys can only do it if they're ginger.
Okay.
And just there was something lacking in the shows that we were seeing. And then also I felt like I was going to a lot of shows that honestly weren't that good, and making my friends go see these 2.5 hour shows that just went on forever with a million comics on it that were kind of bad. And so it was just like, we want to make a show that I want to go see, or that my friends would want to go see, that was enjoyable, and like keep it only at an hour and a half, make people be really funny. So we kind of brought to life something that we weren't seeing.
Okay. And you mentioned the word vision. So like when you go through the process of creating a show, how do you actually figure out what that vision is going to look like? And then how do you turn the idea, maybe talk me through the journey of turning an idea into something real?
Well, I mean, I think we kind of curate the show, don't we? We always try and get the biggest names that we possibly can. So we'll get a big name headliner, and then we'll get a fairly big name opener as well. And then we'll piece in the rest of the comics that we feel are going to flow with the show, and it's kind of going to create the same kind of good environment and, you know, top talent as much as possible.
I think that I kind of pieced together pretty well in a weird way that we were looking for a space, and then a really perfect bar popped up. One of Emma's friends found us our venue, and it kind of all went together. It was very kismic that, you know, we ended up meeting these people, and they were searching for something and we were searching for something. And then for me, it's an Asian woman and a white guy from Florida. So it was like a second round of my family. Like, it was kind of weird how it all came together like that.
Once a month you do the show right now, is it?
Yeah, once a month. Yeah. When
do you say, if you're planning, when are we now? We're going into February. When is the February show, for example?
February 21st. We're always the third Sunday of the month.
Okay. And when would you start planning the next that show out, or would you be planning 5 shows out? What's the kind of process you take for that?
We tend to sometimes plan in advance. We definitely know key people that we want, and then we'll reach out to them, and whatever works best for them, we'll kind of place them. So we always know we have an opener that we want, a headliner that we want. So those tend to be bigger names that are harder to get. So we'll place them throughout the month. So we'll constantly be like working on multiple shows at once. And then we'll just kind of insert them. We never have more than 8. So it's always the 2 of us. So then we only need 6 other people. So then we have the opener and the headliner, and then we fill it in with other people. Okay.
And for big name comics, like obviously they're doing our show for free because, you know, people, they like to work out their material in a good venue when there's a good crowd, which is what we offer to them. But obviously then it can happen, like Whitney Cummings, for example, was going to do our show and then she got a paid gig. So that can happen. So then, you know, we'll have to move things around sort of in the last week. But we're getting more well known now on the circuit, and comics, bigger name comics, want to do our show because they know it's a great room. They know the crowd is friendly. They know that, you know, they're going to be in a lineup with other really talented comics. So yeah, the word is getting out. So
the reason I'm kind of asking some of these more kind of tactical questions about planning, because I'm very fascinated about the process people take. Was this the first time either or both of you have kind of worked on putting a show together like this, or have you done something like that in the past?
I had, yeah. When I was doing stand-up in London, I used to run a night for about a year at the Paradise by way of Kensal Green. So it was the same kind of thing.
And my minor in college was directing. So I directed, it wasn't a lot of stand-up, but I directed a lot of plays, like Hollywood Fringe Festival plays and things like that. So I'm used to like that kind of like organization / putting things together and producing.
No.
Okay. And since November 2017 when it started, it's probably, going into its second or 12, 15 months or so. What are the key things you've learned that you never expected when you were starting out? So probably not just around the comedic elements, but, marketing, advertising, things like that you just said, wow, that's a lesson that we learned that will be better for next time.
Things that we can say on air.
Everything can be said on air.
What have we learned? What's been the biggest thing we've learned?
I know for me, probably a little bit of like lessening up my control. I used to be like, want to have a control on everything. And sometimes things happen. Like we had a comic that was just snowed in Canada last month. Mm-hmm. So that's beyond my control. I can't control the snow. So it's things like that where it's just like, I think like it's going to go a certain way. And it's just kind of have to loosen the reins and move with the flow a little bit, which has helped me in my personal life as well too. Mm-hmm.
And the fact that there's two of us is great because, we can shoulder the burden, and there's always, if I can't do something, Michelle can do it, or if she can't do it, I can do it. So that's actually a good thing when there's a partnership. And, as Michelle said, letting go, like things, comics, your headliner will cancel sometimes on the day. That will happen. And then you have to, and it's all going to be fine. It's still a great show no matter what happens. And it's still only $5 on the door. So people know they're getting a really great quality show. And, we always do have top talent. So, but yeah, not getting too stressed when things kind of cock up at the last minute, as they invariably will.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's kind of the contingency planning that you need to probably do as well, just to be prepared for that sort of stuff that crops up.
Yeah, always have a backup.
Backups are essential. Plan Bs. Feedback on the show versus, say, feedback on your own performance. How does that differ, or are they? Do you take them differently?
Yeah, I think sometimes obviously you're not always going to have a good show personally, but I think we nearly always have a really good show. Mm-hmm. The show is always a fun show, and we've always got a top headliner. So it's, even if I myself maybe had a bad night that night, or Michelle did, like, it's still not going to take from the show. We'll always have a really great show. And as well as that, as a comic, when you have a bad night, or when you think you have a bad night, you learn something from that. There was something that you didn't say, or maybe you forgot a joke, or you weren't present with the audience, or whatever. There's always something you can learn when you don't have a good gig personally. But I think the good thing for us is, because we're doing a show, that even if one of us has a bad gig ourselves, we'll still have a great show, which means that we still feel elevated from the night. Mm-hmm. We still feel good about the night because the show was great and people went home happy.
And it sounds so LA to say this, but I think that our venue has a good vibe, and people generally just have fun when they go there. It's a great venue, and it's full of really awesome people. And so everyone's very uplifting that goes to see our show. No one's really there to be like, I want to watch you fail. Everyone's there to have a good time. And so it kind of almost feels like a party. And then there's like a DJ after, and there's 90s dancing, there's pizza next door. So it kind of just feels like a fun night out. I didn't think I expected so many repeat people to be constantly coming every single month. And some people I know are like, this is my favorite thing of the month. And so they feel very, really invested in it, which sometimes it's kind of weird though, because I'll have people talking to me and it's almost like they're so invested that they feel like they can like say so much to me after the show's done. Like, oh, this person, this, and I'm like, almost like they have been for a year coming every single day, that they're so invested in it that they're like oversharing almost, but it's good to have that feedback to them.
Yeah, no, definitely. It sounds like it's really beginning to take off, and obviously with 80s or 90s music, that's always good as well. It'll just make me feel young again.
We'd love to. Ideally, we'd love to get a second night going, but Michelle is planning a wedding right now. She's getting married in August,
so hard.
That's taken up a lot of time, but yeah, ideally we'd like to get another night going in another part of town, because where the night is right now, it's a lovely little bar called the Simple Bar, a little neighborhood bar, and it's kind of just next to Universal City. So right before you get on the 101, I know that means nothing to people in Ireland, but near the Hollywood
Universal Studios.
Between Universal Studios and the Hollywood Bowl, actually, people might know those landmarks. So, and there's free parking, which is great, but we'd love to get something maybe on the other side of town, maybe the east side where Michelle lives, or maybe the west side, and we'd have another little venue going maybe on the first Sunday of the month or something like that. That's kind of the plan for the future.
Okay, sounds good. Would you call yourselves entrepreneurs?
I'd love to. I'd really like to wear that hat. Yeah.
I actually honestly never thought of that. I've never thought of myself in that light. I don't think that I would be bad at it. I wouldn't think that if someone was like, I don't think I'd be like, oh, I'm terrible. I would never be able to do it. That's just never really crossed my mind, because I definitely wear a creative hat more than I think that I wear a business hat. And it just hasn't been on my radar. It's an interesting question because I never thought of it, honestly.
But you're creating a show, and that's the creative piece. But there's I presume a business side to it as well. From a business perspective, what do you think you've learned around doing that?
Well, I mean, we make a little bit of money, but we wouldn't make much. But that wasn't the primary objective for us for doing it. I mean, we wanted to do it to give ourselves stage time and to give other up and coming stand-up comics stage time. That was kind of, why we wanted to do it. So for us, the money was secondary, wasn't it? And, at this level, at our level, and certainly in the level above us, comics do shows for free all the time. So it's not, unless we decided, to buy a venue and create a comedy club, I think at our level, at the level we're doing now, it's difficult to make any kind of money beyond pocket money.
And we're always outsourcing that money to other things, like,
Yeah, we are, PR.
PR, someone help our Instagram,
yeah,
stuff like that. But I don't think that we're bad at it. I think that, I especially think in this last year, it's helped me grow to be like, oh, I could be a boss bitch if I needed to be.
Yes.
Not a bitchy boss, though. A boss bitch. Boss bitch.
Emma, you mentioned the levels there. So, is there kind of talk to me about the hierarchy of comedians in LA? Is what level you're at versus the next level? Is there some sort of kind of league table? And, maybe just explain a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, headline comics are in a different league. They're sort of top of the food chain, if you like. But I think there's maybe an idea that people who've been doing it 10 years are professional. People who've been doing it 5 years are, on their way to being professional. And anyone below 5 years is still kind of a newbie.
Baby.
Yeah. A baby comic. Yeah. So baby teenager, they kind of talk of it like that. So yeah, we're obviously doing it less than 5 years, even though I did it in London. I quit when I came out here in 2009. So I kind of picked it back up again just over 2 years ago when I met Michelle. So we would still be at the kind of the bottom rung of the ladder.
Yeah.
We're still baby comics, even though we've been doing it over a couple of years. But, until you get to that 5, because the thing is, a lot of people drop out. It's quite difficult to do. It's hard to do. It's hard to keep getting on stage. It's hard to keep writing new material. And so within that sort of 0 to 5 year period, there's going to be a lot of casualties. People will drop out. So if you've been doing it 5 years, people know that you're in it for the long haul and that you're not going to quit. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's what it is. And then, you'll, the longer you're on the scene, you'll know people in the community, you'll get to know their comics, you get to know their shows, you do their show, they do yours, that kind of thing. That's sort of how it works.
Yeah. I definitely consider myself a baby stand-up. I always say that I'm a baby stand-up, but it's funny because the class that we met, I was the TA in it. So I had, TA'd a couple times and watched a couple rounds of people. And it's so funny because you'll see people take the class, they never did stand up before. And all of a sudden they just call themselves, I'm a stand-up comedian. And they just say it to everyone they meet. That's how they introduce themselves. That's what they are. Then they do one show somewhere else. And then they never do stand up again because then they realize how hard it is to self-motivate yourself, to push yourself to and how many times to just feel like you hate yourself after you bomb. That's the worst feeling in the whole world. There's a lot of people who will bomb and they'll never do it again because you get that first, especially in a class setting, people know it's your first time to do it. So they're really nice to you. And then you're you get this high from it. But then when reality hits you, then I'll never do this again. So it's funny because when people first start doing it, they label themselves a stand-up, but then they realize they're not a stand-up. So even at year 2 for me, I feel like I'm just a little baby.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I still feel like I haven't even nailed down my set completely of what I want to say. So that's why I'm like continuously changing it too. So it's like, how do you want yourself to be completely presented to the world? And it's kind of good to get this baby time too, because, you know, people think that people become overnight successes, but they actually don't. You know, they're working behind the scenes all the time.
And, you know, at this level, you can fail. You've got that luxury, if you like, to fail and to try stuff out and for it not to go well and then to try something else. And then, you know, once you've got jokes that you like, even we keep mixing them up to make them interesting for ourselves, you know, because then you kind of start getting bored with your set and bored with your jokes and you hate all your jokes and you hate yourself. And it just, that's the way it goes. You just have to keep working through it. Keep working through it. And that's kind of, I think that's the journey is working through it. And even when you don't want to do it, even when you hate it, even when you hate your set, you know, you still do it.
Yeah. No, I'm nodding in lots of ways there. I'm just trying to draw a comparison to podcasting, right? So it's not my day job either, but I love it. I'm not getting millions of downloads like somebody might think after releasing 2 episodes they're going to be hyper popular globally. That's certainly not the way it works, but it's a struggle. It's the journey piece that massively is where you learn so much. And your point there, Emma, I think both of you said it. One of the first guys I interviewed on my show, he's a guy from Dublin actually, Andrew Mangan. He has podcasts. He has millions of downloads a month, but he said the exact same thing. It's maybe after 9 years he became an overnight success, and it just exploded then. So it's the grind. It's keep learning, keep chipping away at it.
9 years, that's quick. It usually takes 10. They say that in LA it takes there's a leaf blower outside, sorry if you can hear that. They say it takes 10 years to become an overnight success, but in LA it's apparently 12. It takes 12 years, and either you quit or you get there or you go home, you know. So still here. I put down 9.5. How long have you? We're close. We're getting close.
Chip away. If you put yourselves together, you have 12 years then. So maybe that'll help the synergies.
And then, you know, you create a life, you know, and you learn to do things that you enjoy. So you might have come out here with one intention, and then over the course of living out here for 10 years, your life, as yours did in Cork, I'm sure, you know, you take maybe you pivot slightly in one direction or another, and you're still finding things to do that fulfill you, you know. But for me, like, I think the one thing I've learned from doing stand-up, because I get the worst stage fright ever. Like, it's terrible, and people have no idea, and I'm so nervous, you know. I'm so nervous before I go on, and I think for me, the idea of not doing something is far worse than the actual fear of doing it. So you might as well just do it, you know, instead of having the fear of doing it, because you'll always feel worse if you didn't do it. You just have to keep doing it. And the other thing is to remember that nobody judges you as much as you judge yourself in anything. Most people don't give a shit. So you get up there like, oh, I was awful. The thing is, you weren't. You just thought you were. And no, everyone else is thinking about their own shit. Nobody's that fucking interested in you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so when you remind yourself of that, it frees you up. You know, it's nobody's that interested in me. Even if I did okay, it wasn't as great as I thought. I still did okay. It's fine. I did it anyway. Woo, me, aren't I great? I still did it. And that's kind of how you have to, and then on to the next. And so if you do four gigs in a week and you have 2 bad ones, well, that's 50% good in a week. So that's great. Whereas if you only do 1 in a week and you do bad, that's 100% bad in a week. So you just have to keep getting up there, you know?
Yeah, no, totally agree. And I would compare it in some ways to presenting. It's like people's biggest fear of doing a presentation at work or whatever, and I would have been shit at that myself for years, but I always knew why it was bad, because I wasn't doing it enough. And again, when I started to maybe record myself doing it and see that actually when I thought in my mind I was pausing for 5 days between words, it actually didn't come across that way. It was really, you know, what goes on in your own head is so different to what you actually or others would actually see as well. Same for you, Michelle. Would nerves be a big thing for you? How do you deal with the fear?
With me, it's a little different. I'm always nervous at home. And then once I get to the spot, I'm not as nervous anymore. The car ride there makes me really nervous, but as soon as I get there, I'm pretty calm. especially with our show when we're producing, we're doing a million other things like, checking the mics and the this and the getting drink tickets for the comic. So it kind of distracts you and takes you away from it. Or sometimes at another show, if we're just sitting there watching other comics, I'm like, oh wait, I have to go.
Yeah.
You just kind of forget. You know? So my thing is I do the day of before I get to the venue. I'm pretty chaotic at my own house. But then, and the car ride there, I'd say is the worst one. But then it just goes away for some reason. And then when I get on stage,
but everyone gets, Mark Maron is probably doing 30 years and Judd Apatow 20 years. They say that too, that the fear never really leaves you. And they say that if it does, that's when you should be worried. But what I'm doing now is I'm reframing my thoughts instead of, because it's the same chemical that produces excitement. It's exactly the same feeling. So if you say, oh, I'm really excited, instead of, oh, I'm really nervous, and just watch the language around that. That's what I'm trying to do. And so and get into a place of excitement as opposed to nervous, because they're exactly the same. It's just whatever you tell yourself.
Yeah, totally agree. The reframing is a thing I talk a bit about. I do coaching, and it's called neuro-linguistic programming. I don't know if you've heard of NLP, and there's
that as well.
There's a lot of reframing and looking at yourself in, objectively in the third person and things like that. So they're absolutely important things to keep in mind. When you're creating a bit or a sketch, what's your process of doing that? Is it something quite well formed, or is it very ad hoc?
For me, it's kind of weird. I spend a lot of time by myself. That sounds so like a psychopath. But I spend a lot of time by myself, and ideas will just pop into my brain, and then I will just write it down in my notes. And then sometimes I'll just find it, and it looks like serial killers writing, because I'm like, what does this even mean? And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's what it means. And then I will leave it alone. I'll jot down a couple more ideas, and then I'll sit down at the last minute, unfortunately, and then bang it all out. So I don't know if I have, and I've learned not to judge myself. That's just how I do it now. I used to be like, you should prepare 5 days before, but I can't. So I have accepted that it's okay that I write it all the day of, but the ideas are ruminating in my brain, and they just pop out while I'm cleaning or taking a walk or something. And I always treat all of those ideas like gifts and gold, and then I dissect them later. So, and also a lot of my stuff is about where I was raised in the South with a Korean mom, so it's a lot of weird things. And so it's almost like working out my childhood through writing. And now I'm just I think of my childhood almost as a gift too, because just such random weird things have happened to me that have happened to no one else. And almost like a memory will just pop up, and then I'm like, yes. And then I already know that I'm need to do it the last minute. So I put it away, and then I'll do it the night before or the day of. And even sometimes my fiance is like, I can't believe you did it. I just it'll be up to the last minute. The show will be at 8, and I've written my new set at 6. And somehow it just comes out. I don't know. I've just always worked better under pressure.
Yeah, nothing like a bit of pressure.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that's an ideal way to work. It's just, that's how I used to be in the sketch team too. If my sketches were due on a Sunday, I'd write them on a Saturday night. It would just be bad, but that's just, I'd always be thinking about it. And I think thinking about it helps. The overthinking, and you think it's overthinking. I used to be negative of myself. You're an overthinker, you're so this. But it's not actually overthinking. It's just
ruminating the thoughts, exactly. Which is exactly what comics do. Yeah.
Right.
Very good. And
that's just my process. I don't know if that's anyone else's process in the whole world.
Yeah, I think it's normal for a comic. We're all a bit weird, so as normal as we can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting, the art of journaling. When you were saying you're walking around, you come up with the idea and you write something down. I would journal pretty much, or journal is kind of a bit of a pretentious name for writing stuff down that's in your head. And then it starts to make a little bit of sense. Or if I have an idea, typically if I'm doing yoga in the shower, some of the best stuff comes, and I might, obviously can't write stuff down in the shower, but scribble stuff down as soon as I can, similar to that, leave it, and then it's either a crazy idea an hour later or there's something more to it. So I think getting it, as soon as you get it out of your head, do you find it easier then, so that you stop overthinking about it and have it on paper?
Well, I always do, like, I have like, when you mentioned journals, I was like, I have 10,000 journals. But then one time, like, my fiance was like, I'm going to read your journal. They like, like, as like a joke to be like, see your secret thoughts. And he didn't even know what any of it meant. It was like, beautiful, beautiful mind. Like, he was like, what is this crazy stuff? So God. It's just, for me, I just need to jot down the idea and remember it later. And so sometimes I will be like, I can't even think about that right now. I can't flush it out, but I just need to know the idea will just pop up, and then I will, as long as I know that I won't forget it and that it's there somehow, like either written in my notes or written in my journal, then I'll go back when I feel like I'm being a worker, and then I will work it out. But I don't really like to do that until I'm ready because it stresses me out. So that kind of hinders my creative process. So just jotting down ideas helps my creativity. And then I assign some time to flush it out.
Very good. You mentioned 5 years as the kind of point where people get more, I suppose, considered accomplished, or is that like an unwritten rule in Hollywood to say, how long have you been doing it? That, you haven't got the 5 year mark, you won't even get entertained?
Not really. I mean, no, but people just would know that. I mean, people are generally nice in the community. Nobody's that mean and bitchy. I mean, at least if they are, they're not coming out with it. But I think people just know that you're serious. If you've been going 5 years, now look, there's people that have been going less than that, and maybe they've won competitions and they're doing really well. But generally, at the 5 year mark, people would know that you've been doing it a little while, you're relatively proficient, and you're on the way to being professional, and that you haven't quit. Because I think if people are going to quit, they'll quit between 0 and 5 years.
Interesting. And have you seen comics that just explode onto the scene that are younger? Is there anything that they do differently when those that break the mold?
Well, I mean, you could decide, there's a comic, Gerard Carmichael, so you can decide to come to LA and you're going to do open mics 7 nights a week, and you're going to line up and do every single open mic at the Comedy Store the Laugh Factory does. So you probably, and some comics, the younger comics with more energy than I have, might do 3 and 4 and 5 open mics in a night. So if you're going to do that, then you might be able to fast track it, because the one thing that you need is stage time. You need to become comfortable in front of an audience. But I think for most of us, you also need to sit down and write your jokes. I mean, there's very, very few comics that get up there and just talk until it's funny. And I know it looks like that when they're up there, like, lots of them, it looked like they just be up there riffing, but there's very, very few of them that don't know exactly what they're saying, word for word. Every single word counts when you're on stage, especially when you're talking to time. You might get a 5-minute spot, a 7-minute spot, a 10-minute spot, and you don't want to waste too many words. So I think it's important. It's not just about getting up on the mic and just talking about your day 5 times a week, which we could all do. And I think some of the younger, particularly male comics, seem to think they can do that. And look, it does work. Generally, as a rule, it may work for some of them, because I think men, when they start off in anything, are a little bit more confident than women. Women tend to be more meticulous. They want to know, they want more details. They need to sit down. They want to make sure they really have a handle on this, whereas men will go, I know what I'm doing, even when they don't. And I think that's probably true of nearly every industry. But yeah, I think sitting down, actually writing the jokes and getting on the mic as much as you possibly can. But if you can get on the mic 5, 6, 7 nights a week, then people might know your name within 2 or 3 years, because you might be out there and, you might have built up quite a lot of material.
I think also making our show has helped us though too, because people would never know who we were if we didn't have this great show. So then now people, especially with social media, they've seen the show, they've heard about the show, people talk about the show, which for doing stand-up for 2 years as baby comics, we would never be on the radar of these people before. And we're building our own stage time, because the same as there's bad shows, there's also bad mics, where you could do a mic, you could wait all night, 2 hours, and then you do a show for 2 people. And you're like, I could have done this at home for my cat and my fiance, So like, why am I sitting out here at this dingy bar for 2 hours? So now we know every month we have, and in the upcoming future, every 2 times a month, have a great audience, a lot of people, we're guaranteed that, doing at least 30 people in the audience, so.
Yeah. And would it, because you guys are hosting it, setting it up, does that make it less of a pressure on you or more of a pressure when you're actually doing your bit?
For me, I think it's more pressure. You'd probably say less pressure, but I think it's because we've a lot to organize, and when I'm doing somebody else's show, I know I'm doing 7 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever I'm doing, and I'm usually much more relaxed. I'll sit there, I'll watch all the other comics, and also at other people's show, unless they're a bringer show, we don't have as many people there to see us. Like with our own show, we've got a lot of people that come to see us. Usually, half the audience is Michelle's friends, half of them are my friends, as well as regulars and everything else. There's a lot of people there. So I would feel more pressure at our own show, because obviously there's a lot of other things to think about. You want things to run smoothly, you want things to run to time. There's a lot to be thinking about. But when I'm doing somebody else's show, I can just enjoy the show and then go up and do my spot.
And same, you're different though, Michelle. You're saying it's the other way, you feel a bit less.
I would say it's even, actually, for me. It's like equal. I know that when I don't have a time limit, it's easier for me because I don't get caught up in time. So if I do somebody else's show and they're like, you have 7 minutes, I for some reason get fixated on that, being like, I hope I don't go over on time, because I know a lot of people always do go over on time, but I take it so seriously. Like, I don't want to be rude if I go over. So
and you should. I think it's really good etiquette to get into.
Yeah.
It's noticed.
Yeah.
If comics run the mic, it's not a good thing to do.
Yeah.
So
kind of is rude to just be like, you told me 7, I'm going 9.
Yeah.
So I kind of just try to really, it's like my Southern upbringing, to like have good manners.
Yeah.
So it makes me stressed a little bit. That stresses me out at other people's show. Our show, I don't feel as much pressure as performer, because I know the people are smart, and I know that they're gonna like laugh at the things that I say, and they'll get the jokes. Sometimes if you write too cerebrally, like, it will go over people's heads in other places, but I know that our audience is smart and they're a certain way, so I know the jokes will land with them. But I still am a little stressy when I'm there, because I'm like worrying about other stuff, like running the clock, or like if the door keeps opening in the bar, it makes a loud noise, or somebody's at the bar sitting there talking really loud, or there's a drunk person. So there's kind of that kind of situation. But when I get up on stage, I generally do feel happy. Now that our show has been running now for over a year and it's getting a lot of good hype, a lot of people, like, I had a friend drive up from like another county last show, and that made me feel pressure. Like, oh my God, I haven't seen this girl. I haven't seen this girl since college. She came just for my show. I better do good, So that puts a separate kind of pressure on it. But I mean, it's always good. It's always good because you don't want to get lazy. I don't want to be like, every month I know I'm going to kill. I want to keep putting that pressure on myself.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like you both have the right attributes to keep the pressure on and make it successful. How do you work together? How do you come to making decisions together? Are there collaboration skills that are working well? Maybe talk to me a little bit about how you do that.
Well, I mean, the decisions we make together, like we generally make all of the decisions with the headliners and the other comics together. So that's just, I mean, that's kind of what we do. We just make the decisions together, and we, ask, what do you think about this? How do you feel about that? Okay, let's not do that until next month. Maybe we should do a bit of this. Maybe we should, we need to get a different light. We should start earlier. We should start later. Whatever, that kind of thing. But we're in agreement usually, aren't we? Mm-hmm. on pretty much, because we know we have the same vision for what we want to create. So, and the other good thing is with running this show, like in the down times, or when we're not always feeling great about it or doing stand-up comedy, we pick each other up, and we know, well, it's all right. We're doing a show. We've got a show. Whatever happens, we've got a great show every month. So that's good. We know that we're still doing it, because, there's plenty of times I'm lying in the bath going, Jesus, I don't want to get out of this bath. I don't want to go. Not that I'm going to drown myself, but I don't want to go. I don't want to get to, go out to this club that night, or I don't want to get on stage. And you get the fear. I've written something. Is somebody going to like it? Oh, this is shit. Nobody's going to think it's funny. So you get all of that kind of fear, but we kind of, we pull each other back from the edge if that ever happens.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. Conscious of time, so maybe just end up with a couple of ones. You mentioned motivation and how to keep yourself motivated. Maybe what do you do to keep that drive, passion moving forward?
Honestly, I think that the show helps because it's like every month I know that I have to show up and do a good job because, like I said, I keep that pressure on myself. And I mean, our names and faces are splattered all over the internet with this, and flyers everywhere. So I'm like, that it needs to be good. So that makes me rein in my fears and just be a little bit more self-motivated. Now that I'm a little bit older, it sounds like cliche to say that I'm just not so filled with self-doubt.
Yeah.
That kind of helps me now. When I was in my 20s, I mean, I wish I could go back and like shake the shit out of that girl because, she was so skinny and pretty, but so filled with self-doubt and hatred and walking into rooms and just doubting myself before I even got there. And Hollywood's a different place now. When 15 years ago, 10 years ago, it was 10 years ago when I used to go on commercial auditions, I was literally only ethnic person. I'm half Korean and half white. And they'd be like, are you Mexican? Do a Mexican role. Like, learn Spanish. There was no one else that wasn't white. And it's so different now. And so that motivates me now because now I'm like, maybe I want to go back into acting a little bit now because there are, mixed people and Asian people on TV, which was something I never, ever saw before. Never once. And I just am in a calmer place in my life now. I used to be so psychotic and boy crazy and drunk, now I'm just like settled, and being more settled motivates me more actually. And then having a partner, someone that keeps you, I owe it to her too.
Yeah, we do. We keep each other right. And, I do think that having a sanctuary, having a home life, both of us were in relationships, we're both engaged. So I think being with a partner that allows you to flourish and grow and wants you to do your best as an artist, because it's hard for artists, particularly if you've ever been with somebody that has tried to clip your wings or put you in a little box. And I've had a lot of that in my life. And so, being with somebody that wants me to do well in what I've chosen to do is great. And I think that then it gives you, if you like, a cradle from which you're, to grow as an artist and motivate yourself. And, and also the other thing is when you're with somebody, you live with somebody, like it's, I do want to make it look like I was working really hard all day. So I do. I actually do. I do work all day because I don't want him to come home and I'm like lying on the couch. I can't even actually turn on the TV in the house by myself. I can't, just in case. I'll end up watching too much TV, but I don't do that. But yeah, I actually don't. Oh no, seriously, I don't know how to turn on the TV.
That's a good thing. That's probably a good thing.
It's like 60 inches. He's got this huge TV and like there's 5 different remotes. I'm like, what the fuck? I can't even turn this on. So I don't, which is good because it means that if I'm at home working in the day, I'm not going to be distracted. Yeah. So
no, that sounds good. And I guess holding each other, that little bit of shared accountability helps as well. It keeps you both probably motivated to keep moving forward and not let each other down.
And we sound out ideas with each other on jokes and stuff because I think that's important too. It's really hard to sit down looking at a blank wall and a computer and trying to be funny. You kind of often you have to bounce the ideas off of somebody else, so we do that as well, so that's great.
I think it's a thing with a lot of women that we will be more motivated for someone else than ourselves, and I think that's a bad habit, but that's just kind of the way it is. And now that I know that, like we have the show and Emma's name's on it, I don't want to let down Emma. It motivates me more than if I was just doing it for myself. Yeah, totally.
I think that's right. Actually, we kind of, and we know that we want to do well for each other and for the show. So yeah, it's a good way. But I think in any partnership, you want to hold up your end, don't you?
Yeah.
So I think that's really good, and it does keep you maybe more motivated than if you were just doing something on your own, because you let yourself off the hook if it's just you, but you won't let yourself off the hook if you have to do it for another person or with another person.
Yeah.
It's like having an accountability partner. Mm-hmm. That's so LA.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, accountability buddy, I think they call it sometimes over here as well.
Look at that.
Yeah. Like I'm a schizophrenic, so I hold myself accountable in lots of ways, so it's okay like that. No, I'm not really. I'll wrap it with two quick ones and give a shout out. We talked about the show a lot, which is great. So advice, is there any one piece of advice that you've been given over time that stands out, that comes back to you maybe in moments of tough decisions or challenges?
I mean, I would say just do it, Nike, that slogan. Like, stop, we get in our own heads and we fuck ourselves up with our own bullshit, and just do it. Just stop thinking about it. Don't overthink it. Whatever it is that you want to do it. It's as hard. It's only as hard as what you think it is. It's not that hard. I don't know what I'm trying to say here is doing it is not as difficult as the fear of not doing it. So I just think whatever it is, if you're, and I think that keeps coming back to me over my life, is just do it and trust your gut. Like, listen to your instincts and trust your gut. I think those, and people have said that to me over the years. Like, I've heard that bit of advice a lot, trust your gut. So I think I'd probably come back to that all the time, to trust your gut. Cool.
I think for me, it's like, this sounds cliche too, but just to be yourself. Even the teacher that we had once was like, if someone else could pick up your set, then no one else could be able to read it. And it's, for me, I'm such a sensitive person, and any little thing could make me go down a dark hole of, self-doubt. And not so much now that I'm older and a little more confident, but before. And when I was talking before about going into different rooms when I used to try to be an actress, I used to compare myself to every other person. So it was like, if another, girl comes in, I compare myself to her. But now I feel like with stand-up, I'm being myself. And even if there was another half Korean, half white girl from Fort Pierce, Florida walked in this room, I would know that my set would stand alone from hers, because I'm truly being myself. And I think that is really what's launched me to move forward a little bit more in my career, is that being myself and being free with myself and not judging who I am now has made me free as a person, that I don't just like lock myself, because I spent a lot of time in LA, and the 9-year rule doesn't apply to me, because I spent a lot of time being depressed, not trying to do anything with my career, being a mom to my cat, like just being crazy, like just not doing
Everybody
anything.
has, though. Yeah. I think that's probably why it takes long, because as artists, we are very sensitive people. And, in a city like LA, there's a lot of distractions, but then there's a lot of comparisons as well. Yeah. And there's going to be a lot of things that will derail you.
Pressure.
And, most people suffer from depression. Most actors see therapists. We've all gone through that mental health thing. I mean, that's the thing. And I think that's probably why we know certain things and we're not afraid to talk about them in stand-up, because and that's why they resonate with people, because people have been there too. Everyone's been in bed, not wanting to get out of the bed with the covers over their head. Everyone's been there at some point in their lives, so yeah. We're normal.
Yeah, no, but I think it's what I'm taking from it, and what's really interesting is definitely the self-awareness piece and developing, as you said, Michelle, you writing about your own life growing up and the suffering and things like that's happened to you have helped you become that comic, even though at the time you didn't realize this actually is an important event that 20 years down the road I'm going to write about, that's going to make me who I am. So for me, that's really interesting. Similar stories. I'm not a stand-up comedian, obviously, but by doing the podcast, by doing things like that creative side, those things that happened earlier in life make sense now more. So that's really good to kind of wrap it up on. I think it was really interesting. Thanks so much, ladies, for sharing your story and the story of throwing punches. Maybe just in the standard end of podcast wrap up, give yourselves a bit of a shout out, how folks can find out more about you both and about the show.
Well, we're on Instagram. Throwing Punches Comedy is the handle, and I have a website, EmmaPyne, PYNE.com, and I'm also on Instagram, Emma M Pyne.
And I'm on Instagram, Michelle A. Thorn, and Twitter and all those things. And A Simple Bar is the bar that we do our show at every third Sunday.
That's on Instagram as well.
Yeah.
Very good.
So, yeah.
Instagram is the place to be, I think, for comedians. Seems to be best,
it is
the best place to be hanging out.
We're so lucky because we found a lot of comics that way too. You know, if it was 20 years ago, we'd have to like write them a note or something. Pony Express.
Send them a letter or something like that. Yeah.
Well, actually, people just phoned, didn't they? People actually made a phone call, and somebody else answered.
How would you get the number though?
Oh, somebody give it to you.
The Yellow Pages. There was a big book at one stage. Remember?
Do you remember those days when if a guy liked you, he actually had to call to your house and speak to your father? I was from a time in Ireland when that happened.
I remember having to cycle long distances to do that sort of thing a long time ago.
And it was character building, wasn't it? Like fellas had to do that when they're like 15 or 16, come and knock on your door and go, is Emma there? And you know, that's what kids had to do. Kids don't have to do that anymore. And they had to get past the mother and the father, you know, and they'd be interviewed before they get to meet the daughter.
Yeah. Well, at least I suppose they're still meeting actual people. Maybe in 10 years' time it's going to be robots, so I'm kind of worried about that. My son downstairs, that's 5-6 weeks old, he's God, like, what will online dating be like in those days? That's another podcast. A long time away.
Use the iPhone.
He probably does. He probably still. Yeah, he knows how to use the iPhone already.
Probably.
He's already on Tinder. He's got his own Tinder profile at 5 weeks old.
God, that's scary stuff. Let's not go there. Look, ladies, thanks so much. I'm looking forward to sharing this. It's been great to connect with both of you. Best of luck with the show, Emma. If you get over here, let me know. I'd love to go to a gig.
Thanks,
and
Rob.
yeah, best of luck. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Great talking to you.
You too, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, just before you go, I'd love to hear from you if anything specific stood out from that episode, something you might take away and try and implement in your own personal or professional life to help make you that little bit better. On the other side, is there anything you think I could do better to make the show even more enjoyable, more impactful and maybe meaningful? So drop me a note, rob@robofthegreen.ie, or connect in on any of the social platforms at Rob of the Green. We also have a community on Facebook. Check that out. If you're really enjoying the show, maybe you could try and leave a rating or a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts app. Go in there, give us a rating, let us know how we're doing. That'll help with the ranking of the podcast up those charts. The more folks that potentially see it, because we're high up, the better. The more that might listen that never heard of it before. And the goal of the show is to try and reach more and more people and have that impact more and more. So that's down to you. Please do help me with that. I'm not going down the route of hiring podcast promoters, quote unquote, from other parts of the world, because they say they can help with the ranking, and I don't really believe them, or it's not very authentic. Help me do it in an authentic way. I'd really appreciate it. This year I'm going more all in on Patreon, so it's $3 a month. You can sign up, subscribe to Rob of the Green on patreon.com. That will give you access to Patreon only content. Nearly all the episodes of the 864 podcast are on there, and new ones will be added only there. The 1% Better show will have early releases there, but will still come out for free on robofthegreen.ie. There'll also be live shows this year, some phone-in shows, extra content. €3 a month will, hopefully, the more folks that subscribe, allow me to do more and more stuff on there, add more and more content. At the end of the day, that's the price of a pair of socks, maybe, that you might lose, or a coffee. One way or the other, it's up to you. If you want to join, you'll still get free stuff otherwise, but if you're enjoying what we're doing, help us grow, help us expand it. I'd really appreciate that. Adding new stuff onto the website all the time. There's an affiliates page under the Be Better drop down. Check in there. There's training courses that you can sign up to. More and more stuff will come in over time. Into season 3 now of this fun journey. Huge learning. Hopefully you're getting something from it too. Stick with it. Let's keep going. Enjoy the journey even more. Have a great day, week, weekend, and thanks for checking it out. Good luck.